Name is Ngoc. Today I'm going to share to you about my experiences dealing with the Orange County Probate Court located in Costa Mesa Justice Complex, and how once I get into this court, it seems like it leaves my mother more isolated and neglected rather than helping her to protect her. In 2022, my life changed when my father got involved with a younger woman who wanted his money. And so she manipulated him to promise her a house, and then he started coming to me wanting me to, give him $70,000 to donate to an affiliate of her church where her husband serves as a worship leader. Then he wanted unlimited access to trust funds that are really only for my parents' care. But so when I, as a trustee, refused to breach my fiduciary duties to my mother by, dispersing funds away from my mother's care, and I said no to elder abuse, my father sued me. So what followed is more than 3 years of legal nightmare across 4 separate court cases in probate court, driven by attorneys who push a costly conservatorship over the less restrictive alternatives, which are my parents' estate planning documents, and completely wiping out funds meant for my parents' care, especially my mother, who has dementia and a lot of other illnesses. So the systemic failure is that my father's attorney, named Heidi Griffith, she purported to represent both of my parents without my mother's consent and misleads medical providers by falsely claiming that she is my mother's legal representative, even though my mother never signed a retainer with her, never agreed to her representation. But because my mother has ability, right now my father seems to be litigating in her name without her consent. I thought that when the court appointed Robin Butler to be my mother's court-appointed counsel and Timothy Hanley to be my mother's guardian ad litem, they would do what is best for my mother. Like the court-appointed counsel, Robin Butler, by law, is supposed to be a zealous advocate for my mother's express wish. Well, that wish was never made in any kind of written or oral hearing. And instead, she used my mother's disability to lock her out of the courtroom, keeping her uninformed while her estate plans are being dismantled against her will, because my father told me that he signed a 75% contingency fee agreement with his current attorney. So basically making her the primary beneficiary of those trusts if she is successful in unwinding my parents' estate planning documents. So when I reached out to a couple people to do court watching, so the guardian ad litem didn't like that. So then he made false representations to the court, saying that these court watchers are illegally recording these proceedings and putting them on social media. And so the court says that they didn't want that, so then they didn't allow me to video record my visitations with my mother, even though these visitations are happening at a public restaurant. And this allowed the guardian ad litem to go in and make any kind of representation he wants without me having the audio-video recording to refute his representation that my mother is non-responsive. She cannot communicate. Well, the guardian ad litem, Timothy Hanley, cannot speak my mother's native language. He only speaks English, and my mother only speaks Vietnamese. And so that language barrier, he framed it as to be like incapacity. And so he's saying that my visits with my mother is for legal control. And so the court used that report to terminate my visits with my mother against my mother's express wish to see me. And but fortunately, my husband did take pictures, of all the interaction, showing my mother was very positively engaged with me. She was smiling and she was making eye contact. But because the court said we couldn't record, so when I'm not able to get my mother's language or response in an audio recording. So what happened was, after the visits were terminated, 5 months later, my mother was found to be hospitalized under life-threatening conditions. She had sepsis, hypoxic respiratory failure, severe infections, and completely bedridden. And I've recently found out that my father had actively opted her out of the chronic care system from her primary care physician, and that he did tell the medical providers he doesn't give her prescriptions. Now, Robin Butler and Timothy Hanley, have access to these medical records, and I think they do have these medical records documenting these things, but yet they still advocated for my father's complete control over my mother, and took positions with whatever my father wants to do, and my mother is suffering. And they're not applying with the minute order from the court to exchange medical records. My dad's attorney was ordered to tell the medical providers to release these medical records to me because I am my mother's chosen medical attorney, in fact. However, because I'm not an attorney, these attorneys have contacted the medical providers and falsely say that my father is the one with the medical POA, and so it caused them to not release those medical records to me. And then compounding to this problem is Timothy Hanley told the court that because my mother's capacity issue is contested by me, therefore it's a waste of time to do a pro bono mediation. And so we never had that pro bono mediation that all the parties stipulated that they would participate. Instead, then I was forced to walk into a mandatory settlement conference, even though the same issues such as the capacity issues, were not resolved. Because how do you walk into a settlement conference if the elder is also who might have capacity? She should be able to attend unless there is a medical professional saying that her participation is harmful to her health. Well, none of these medical reports have been presented to the court, but yet my mother is somehow kept out of these legal proceedings. Her voice are being silenced. Her express wish is not being advocated for. And when I told the court that, I need these medical records and that my mother's capacity evaluation needs to be done before the mandatory settlement conference, it seems like it doesn't really matter. Judge Carol Hansen was appointed to hear the case, I guess ex parte, and that very morning she said my ex parte was untimely and procedurally flawed, and that she claimed that the court reporter was present, but yet the court website shows no transcript no transcript exists. And I was forced to walk into a mandatory settlement conference without legal representation. And then a few days later, I received the minute order denying my ex parte application, and it says it was denied based on the merits. Even though at the hearing, Judge Carol Hansen said it was more a procedural timing. But it seems like, not sure if she really even reads my application, because she was telling me that there were no motions on the calendar to justify the continuation of the trial. And we did try to correct her, say that there are a couple of motions and the trial should be continued after these motions are heard. So that's the ex parte application. I did again to ask for continuance of the conservatorship trial, but Judge Abraham said that it's not considered irreparable harm, even though my mother's fundamental rights are completely ignored. Her rights to participate are completely silenced by agents who, frame her isolation as a welfare concern. So now I am being forced to walk into a conservatorship trial. with very little time to prepare for it. And my mother's capacity evaluation has not been done. And so I'm forced to basically try 3 different cases that all involve the same parties and the same witnesses and the same facts, when these 3 cases could have been done under, one trial rather than 3 separate trials. But yet, that's what the situation that I'm being forced to, and it's draining away the family funds. And I don't believe this is just only happening to me. I think there are many families that have gone through similar experiences, where in this probate system, the families are forced into multiple litigation and draining away funds for the elders' care. So I stand with others like Christine Fleming and California Family Naked Truth. They all have faced this same exact forced trial playbook. So I am fighting for my mother's autonomy, dignity, and right to live safely. The court-appointed agents are supposed to protect her, Timothy Hanley and Robin Butler, but instead they are assisting my father to isolate my mother further, and it's concerning. How you can help is by, we need more court watchers to keep eyes on this case. Transparency does matter. Please share this post, tag elder justice advocates, and help me bring accountability to a system operating in the dark.